All right, good morning, everyone. Let's start it up. All right, last week we saw a big back and forth in global equity markets, kind of led by the S&P. The beginning of the week was a bit shaky, I think, to say the least. I think it was Tuesday we saw a much lower open in the States with a nice reversal into the close to actually finish up on the day. We Wednesday, Thursday, we pushed up nicely, and then Friday basically just kind of consolidated gains. So this is what you're seeing. Friday's session here, Nasdaq flat, the S&P more or less flat, but consolidating the gains on the breakout just above new all-time highs on the S&P. So I think the fact that we're able to just kind of hold it is a relatively good result. For the 23rd week in a row or something like that, we saw U.S. oil rig count fall, where active rigs are 60% lower than what the peak was in October 2014. If it gives you an incredible idea of how fast they've fallen over the past 6 months. And if you throw in, we've had a ton of data as of late that has started to turn softish. Nothing. There's been really no bright lights in terms of the data points lately. We had, the jobless claims numbers have still been solid, but everything else that you look at has been soft. Industrial production was soft. On Friday we had Michigan consumer confidence numbers that were soft. This is a point where the consumer is supposed to be the bright spot in the economy at the moment, especially with oil prices down 50% or close to 50% from where they were only 5 or 6 months ago. So this is that I think is a major disappointment, and and this is obviously taking the foot off the gas pedal, or maybe putting the foot back onto the gas pedal for the Fed. Very quickly saw Treasury yields pulling back off of the tops that we saw early last week toward the end after these negative data points. All right, in Asia overnight, a bit soft. We saw Hang Seng and the Shanghai both lower by over 1%. Australia also down by over 1%. The Nikkei and the Kospi outliers. We've got Billies. Don't be thrown off by bulletins showing down 7% on the day. Remember that they're doing the unbundling with South Deep as a separate listing, so you got to price that in to everything. So keep an eye out for that here today. If we look at our chart of interest, this is, I think, something that's I haven't heard anyone talk about this. I saw this, over the weekend. I read about it, and this is showing the transports versus the broader market, the Dow Jones. And you can see here the transports have underperformed by 8%, literally going back to just maybe the beginning of February. And that's quite spectacular when you see that sort of divergence. Everyone talks about the best leading indicator being the transports and that sort of thing. And if that's, if that is truly the case, then I think there is cause for concern on the back of that, saying that the U.S. economy, and it matches up with the data points. The data hasn't actually been strong. Market's just kind of been able to maintain its upward ascent. So anyway, just keep that out in the back of your mind. All right, we got a ton of earnings out this morning. It's ridiculous. We had Vodacom, which beat on revenue, but everything else I think was a pretty clear-cut miss. I think that, and when you look at the comments from the CEO in the conference call or on the on the report, they basically showing that over the next 3 years that they don't have very much growth expectation at all. We're talking about mid-single digits, so there's nothing to really get excited about it in this stock. I think the market will definitely look at it as a miss. I think it'll definitely be off the top this morning. Astral Foods shooting the lights out. We've got headline earnings per share at over 10 Rand. That's just a ridiculous number relative to what it were last year. That revenue number is a half-year number, and the full-year number expectation is for 10.55. So I think that's also got to be looked at as a beat, huge beat on the divvy. So all in all, I mean, there's already been a trading statement here at Astral Foods, but overall, I mean, I think very, very good number. Probably stealing a lot of that from Pioneer, as you can see there. Earnings looking a little bit softish on that stock relative to Astral. Barlow's earnings out as well. Divvy per share. Maybe a slight beat. I think revenue number for the half year, relative, I'm not sure, but the headline earnings per share looks more or less in line with what recent guidance was. And then we've also got Netcare, which looks quite bad on the revenue number, but a small beat on the earnings per share number. Markets haven't been happy with the medical companies here of late, whether they're pharmaceuticals or whether they're healthcare companies. They've definitely been under big pressure, so some of the selling could be somewhat in the price of some of those shares. All right, moving on. Market data out today. We had Japanese machine orders better than expected. We have industrial production as well, looking a little bit softer, and same as the tertiary industry index. But not a whole lot else to look at in terms of market data. Let's get on into the maps. First thing that we want to look at this morning is Sasol. Look at Sasol real quick, and I want to look at this. I know we showed a couple of these, the first two charts I'm going to show you. I know I showed on Friday. I just wanted to get back into these real quick to just throw out, the levels to keep in mind. So we had a close at 51.80, which is just down in here. You can see where that little dot is, which is below support on the head and shoulder here. So, it's definitely breaking down below the neckline. We closed higher, considerably higher in the States, all the way up at 458 in equivalent price. So, I'm not sure that this thing's going to be able to necessarily hang as low as this early this morning. We've also got the light sweet crude back up above 60 at 60.5. So maybe a bit of a tough one to play, but just want to throw out the level and that it has dropped. Kumba as well. We were looking like we were going to drop on Friday. Wasn't able to, or I guess it was Thursday, wasn't able to hold below it. Friday managed to just kind of hang above it the whole day, but definitely around 155, the neckline. We drop at 155, I think this thing can trade back down to the lows. There's some really bearish commentary this morning out of some of the mining CEOs in that mining conference that's going on at the moment, and I think you've got to keep that in mind. They're very bearish on iron ore, and I think that this could continue to play out. Let's look at Vodacom. This morning had earnings. We showed those a second ago. Definitely looking maybe a little bit soft on earnings this morning, and I think that we broke out here around 139. Maybe you could call it 140 because the wicks are up to 140, but somewhere here between 139 and 140 it's definitely where the level is. If we do get a sell-off this morning, look for that to be the first little level of support. After that, if it drops those levels, then I don't know where it's going to get down to, but I could see there could be definitely a little bit of support around those levels. All right, let's have a look at Harmony. The gold price actually running nicely this morning. You've got a breakout to the downside here in Harmony. But the gold price and some of the other metals and precious metals are starting to accelerate a little bit at the moment. So just be careful. We definitely have dropped. I mean, on Friday at one point it was starting to smell a little bit like the buzzards and crows were circling here. They butchered it early, and that was after it took 8.5% in the States. But definitely breaking out to the downside. Watch this thing closely. If it can't regain about 20.5, then I think you definitely got to play this thing on the short side. I would not at all be surprised to see this thing, and the target is showing us that it's going to retest the lows. All right, let's look at Brait. Brait, let me back this out. I'm going to back it out to a 2-year. So you can see we popped up here and all the way to 95, but it was on a wick, and that was the day that we traded down. That was the day that they sold off a piece of the business, if I'm not mistaken. But then we're right back up here testing 95. We traded there the other day. This is definitely looking very cup and handle-ish here. If we break up through 95, it's a massive target on this thing. I would say very quickly the target would be to 110, 105, 110, something like that. You could see a move and obviously the market liked their acquisition on Friday. And so, watch this thing closely. They own a big stake in Steinhoff. That's also helping carry this thing as well. And the last one that we're going to look at this morning is Aspen. So let me just shorten it down. Aspen, obviously, we had this big head and shoulder setup, which was so beautifully symmetrical, and that whole story. Came up there, tested it, tested that level. That level's at 271, 371, 372. That level failed on Friday. The market, we did test it on the back of their acquisition or potential acquisition of that baby food company. Failed it intraday. We're going to watch again today to see if this thing can, if it does come up here and retest and fails again, starts to turn lower, then that could be the retest, and then we could really see this thing maybe, take out recent lows to the downside. I'm just talking from a technical point of view. I know a lot of people like this thing. I think that they're probably, there are a lot of people holding this thing. Until those guys get flushed out, it's going to probably be a little bit harder for it to go. That's it for today, guys. Good luck out there.